So let's go ahead and do the programming or the scripting in chapter 34. Okay, so I already have the script tags, the open and close, and let's go ahead and copy. And basically the only thing in addition, I'm actually going to get rid of this highlight. The only thing in addition to the scripting on this code here is just this alert. Now this alert is actually a function to do something, and it's already set up for you. So remember that functions are a set of code that is set up to get something done, and it could be a lot of things done. But so with JavaScript, this alert is a function that is already made for you, so you don't have to do a lot of code just to display a pop-up box. So just remember that about functions, and also remember that we talked about functions before when we were doing the canvas. Remember, we were creating squares and triangles. That was JavaScript, and it had functions to create those items. So I went ahead and pasted, after doing the script tags, I went ahead and pasted the alert. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And my file is called JS class. So let me go ahead and open that. And there it is. This is my web page here. And since it's in the head, it actually went ahead and ran it right away. So now I can just click OK, and now it displays what's on the web page. So that's an important thing to remember too, is that when it's in the head, it's going to run right away, unless you have it so that it will only happen at a certain time. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. But that was JavaScript. It's, with that one alert, we have a web page, but when you load it, it actually gives you this message here. And, you could just refresh to see the message again. So, yay, we have a message. All right, so then what's next? Now, this is a part of the book that I edited, excuse me, because it actually had body and then a slash, and that's not the way you do body. And then they didn't even do 2 body tags, they just did 1. So I just kind of crossed those out, and we're just focusing on HTML and then the head here. And in this illustration, it's just showing you where they put the script. So this was the script tags, and then the actual JavaScript. And you can just put it in the head. But remember, you can also put it in the body. But it's in the head, so it happens as soon as the page loads. Okay, but just also know that you can control when it happens. You don't have to have it always happen, when the page loads. You can actually make it happen at a click of a button. And that's actually a trigger event, or an event. So the event would be to click on a button, and then you'll get this message. So in this example here, we have the script in the head, but now it is in a function. And this is actually a function that the user or you can create. Now this one's called howdy, but you can call it whatever you want. But just as long as when you're using it or when you're calling this function, that you need to make sure to use the same name. And this is case sensitive, so if it's all caps or it has one cap, it needs to be consistent, or capital letters. Okay, so, and also if you notice, the script is in the head, and it has it has the script tags, and this is a function inside of it. I also want to point out that this is really a function inside of a function, because just like I said, there's a function created for us, so we don't have to do the code that creates this box, but then we created a function so that we can control when this function happens. Okay, so that is in the head, and then we have stuff in the body. What is in the body? The body has the button to click on. So remember, we created a button, in previous chapters, but now we actually have, excuse me. Oh yeah, and in the previous chapter, when we created a form, we had in the form that if they click the button, it would send an email. We'll also notice too that there are no form tags here. It's just a button. And the first time we did a button, we didn't even put the form tags either. So just notice that we don't need it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. In the head, in the script tags, we're going to put this function here. And really, just like we did before, let me go ahead and bring out our notepad. Okay, so we had in the head, we had this script tags, and then we put the alert there, but we want it to be in a function, not just happen as soon as you load. We want to call this the alert function to actually show that pop-up. Okay, notice that it says function, and then it has the function name, open and close parentheses, and I already did a boo-boo. It's open curly brace, and then close curly brace at the end. And I know they didn't indent, but that's because, they're limited in space. But it is best practice to indent there, because it is inside. But of course, just like we've done before, all of it could be in one line, if you'd rather do it that way. But I prefer putting it on separate lines to lay it out so it's easier to read, especially for you all to read. Okay, anyway, so when we want to control when this alert happens, we need to put it in a function, and then we'll call that function when we click a button. So in the body, we want to create a button. Remember, if you just put input and then type equals button, it's going to create a button. Let's go ahead and just see that without doing any JavaScript yet. So if I save, what do you think is going to happen if you just see this? So I saved, I'm refreshing. Okay, well, there's a button. It doesn't say anything because I didn't tell it to say anything. And also notice that the alert didn't happen as soon as I refreshed because I put it in the function and it's waiting to be called. Now, I didn't call it in this button, so basically that function is really there for nothing at this point. So now let's go ahead and give it a purpose. But first, I want to put a value on there so that the button actually says something. So let me go ahead and put value equals, value equals this button. Okay, I'm saving and refreshing. And now it says click this button. Okay, but I haven't told it to do anything when it's clicked. So let's go ahead and do that. How do we do that? We do this on click here. So we have this on click, and then we're calling the function here. So, and it can be pretty much anywhere, just like value and type could be switched. It's Not a big deal where it is, but as long as it's in there. On click, and we're going to call our function. What is our function called? It says howdy right here. So we're going to put on click and then howdy. Notice that there's an open and close parentheses and then a close quote, and there's a space before and after it. So remember again, very important that the function that you have here has to be the function that's up here. Case sensitive, so if there's any capitals, it needs to be consistent. It needs to be exactly the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that out. We have a button, and when you click it, it's going to call this function. I'm going to save and then refresh. Looks the same, but does it work? Clicking the button, and there we go. We have a message. Okay, so that's that part there. Now, I want to say that the assignment is actually going to be very similar to this. You're going to have a button, and it's going to respond to whatever, well, it's going to say whatever you want it to say, as long as it's not terrible on the assignment. And then your user is going to say, okay. So in my example, like in the example in the assignment, I have that the button says click for blue or something like that. For blue. And when they click that button, let's say I want them to say, you clicked or you chose blue. So then you just change whatever's in the alert and then save. And then when I refresh, it says click for blue, click the button, and then it responds saying you chose blue. Okay, not too terrible. But I think the biggest thing, maybe some errors that you get. Specifically, remember that the function name needs to be the same. So if you change this function, and I recommend that you do, like let's say the function is called color here, but you're not calling it anywhere. It's not color right here. So it's not going to do anything if you click that button. So let me go ahead and save and then refresh, click the button when nothing happens, because nothing is actually called howdy anymore. So let me go ahead and put color here and then save and then refresh. Now you click the button and now the function called color is actually run. So be sure that you are consistent with the name here. You know, it's just a matter of adding that on click to the button we already know how to do. And then we're calling the function to give an alert. But just so you know, that's not everything we need to do for the assignment. Yes, that does what you needed to do, but there are some requirements in the assignment. And let me show you that real quick. In the assignment, it actually says you must store the response in a variable. Okay, so what does that mean? Here's variables. Okay, variables, again, you may have already taken a programming language and it's the same thing. Variables are containers for storing data values. So basically it is a space in the memory that's reserved for whatever the user responds with. So remember, you know, when you log into your account here, here's my username. Well, the username is going to be a variable in the database. So, and remember also that since This is a login for all of the users at Alamo Colleges. There's going to be, this is actually, this input box is saved as, or whatever you put in here will be saved as a variable, and so will this password will be saved as a variable. So when you click this button, the information will be sent to the database to confirm whether I do have access or not. So you have to have variables to store information and use it for whatever reason. So in the login situation, we have a variable for username, we have a variable for password, and then in databases there are so much other data you can save, like age or birthday or address or phone number, because the college needs at least your address and phone number. So all of those are saved in variables. So let's go ahead and look at that. How can we store the data in a variable? So let's go back to the lab real quick. And it says you must store the response in a variable. Okay, and then you're going to use the alert function to display the variable's content. And that's exactly what it's doing here. It's storing data inside a variable, and then it's doing the alert to display the variable. So as you can see here, this basically VAR is basically saying that this is a variable, that str is a variable. So variable string, that is what it's called, is going to equal, or it's actually going to have this hello world inside of that string. Then the alert is just going to display what's in that string, the str. So again, variables hold information. So this line is saying that this variable has hello world in it. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's generally the same thing here, but we're putting the information inside a variable. So basically, instead of putting you chose blue in this alert, I'm going to put the variable instead. So I'm going to put str. I'm just going to use their variable. I'm not going to change it at this point. Okay, so I'm going to have an alert of whatever's in the variable, but now I need to declare the variable. I need to say, well, what is this? What is str? Well, str is a variable, and it has hello world in it. So it's a variable. Str is a variable, and it says hello, hello world. And that's it. So now we have a function that creates a variable. It stores hello world inside that variable, and then we have an alert to display the variable. So when I save and refresh, and remember also that it's going to happen on the on click still, because the button still is calling this function to display what this variable has in an alert. So I saved, and now I'm going to refresh. Refresh, looks the same, but now when I click the button, it says hello world. Now remember again, it looks exactly the same, but the requirement for the assignment, you need to have the, you need to store it in a variable. Now, why do we do that? Well, number one, because I want you to know what a variable is and that you can do it. And, when you create web pages, so many times you're logging into everything. So many websites have a login. So it's important that you see how the logins are being stored into variables. Okay, and also I wanted to come back here real quick And just, I might have already mentioned it, but just make sure that you have, always be sure to check out, test out the most simple thing, like this area here. Test out that simple stuff just to make sure that it's working, that you have JavaScript on. You can check that ahead of time without even testing. It's up to you, but I think the quicker way is just to test very simple code. Okay, so we talked about variables. We have a function. We have information inside of a variable, and then we're displaying it with the alert. Okay, and now we have output. Now, output is a bit different. It refers back, or the textbook refers back to the DOM. And remember, it's the document object model. And I know that it can be a bit challenging to kind of really grasp the concept of that. But basically, and this is the definition, it defines the order and structure of document files. And you can actually manipulate information about the files. You can create, edit, or remove contents. And since I am here, I want to go ahead and show you real quick that I will be putting a video after this. Well, let me go ahead and go into the modules. After week, though, the main page, week 14, I'm going to be activating this videos page where you can see a video by GT Coding. And he explains DOM, and he explains very nicely how you can pull information and use the DOM. But in our situation, I just want to say that the DOM, again, you can manipulate stuff about your page from using the DOM, and you would do that by writing this code here, document.write. So we're referencing the document object, and we're doing it by using document. Now, document really means, the web page that we're creating. This web page that I have here is the document. And when you put write, that means that you're going to write something on the document. And there's so many different options here, and there's so many things that you can change. Like you can change the document, you can change parts of the body, or whatever is part of your web page. And again, watch that video to really understand what you can change or what it is. But for now, basically all we're going to do is we're going to write on the document. So we're going to have our scripting tags, and basically in this situation here, we're going to have the scripting tags in the text, because we want to put this whole, in the body, because we're going to locate this in the same place we want it located on our web page. So let's say I wanted it under this button. I would just put in this entire code under the button. So if I copy this and I pasted this, and let's just make it look a little better. Okay, it's going to basically have document write and then some output. So I save and then refresh. Okay, and there's the text. Some output from JavaScript. Now, yes, it's not very exciting because it's just text, just like you have this working with JavaScript. It's just text, but it is, it would be more exciting, or you can see it more exciting, knowing that you can change what's on the web page. So you can actually program this button to call a function that whenever this button is clicked, this says something different, or maybe it's a different color, or maybe it's a different size. So, so just know that, yes, it looks very simple, but it's more powerful than it seems. And I don't want to get into, all of that stuff. I just want to make sure that you can create a JavaScript file. Now, know that what we've already done so far, and actually, yeah, let me just say that. What we've done so far is a lot of what we already need for the assignment, because we need to write a paragraph, and then we need a function, and it needs to be called by a button. And I do want to mention too that I am going to stop right after I finish this section here, output, because I want to cover this next part next week, because it actually goes into arrays, and arrays are a bit more than I want to cover right now. Okay, there's usually an entire chapter or two on arrays. So let's just focus on just doing output, doing pop-up boxes and functions from a button. So anyway, and actually just a little bit more on this section, you can actually have the actual the text that you're going to output. See, like I have, or it has some output from JavaScript. You can actually have the text up on top, like in the head, or somewhere else, wherever might be appropriate. Because remember, you can have script. If you want your page to load quicker, you might want some script on the bottom, but specifically when you're going to call it. So having the function on the bottom may actually be more efficient when you're creating web pages, but I like it on top. So yeah, you can have the most of the code in a different place, and then this div here is actually calling the text to put it wherever. So instead of putting all of this script code inside of your body, you could just have a div that calls the script code. And this is a bit more advanced information from the DOM. Remember, the DOM, you can refer to items like the document, which is the HTML page, and then just so much more information. And really, this is assigning text to a variable, and it's using a function because it has open and close. But we're really not going to focus on that. I just want you to focus on writing something in your HTML body. Okay, so that is really all you need to know for the assignment for this week. But remember again that you can refer back. Remember that I have, and if we go back into the modules, the very first page in the module, week 14, it has a list of items that you can refer back to if you need any clarification on anything. And, again, I want you to look at that page instead of the textbook, because the textbook, it describes things, but it does it in PHP, not in JavaScript. I think that could be confusing. Yeah, for example, here's function, but then it has public and private at the beginning, and we don't need to go that far. So in the week 14 page, I have the link to the W3 schools, and then I have all of the sections that you should cover. And of course, you're always welcome to, explore on the different things that's available. I even put that you don't have to cover the let and the const, because we're really not going to cover that. That's not going to be on the last exam. But always, you can refer to any of these pages to test things out. Remember, they have a write yourself sections where you can actually change code and then test it out. Well, and this one's actually doing a arithmetic thing, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, I won't focus on that too much, but just know that you can refer back to this to learn more info on certain things you might not be so clear. And of course, you can always ask me. Okay, so that's it for this week.